Hey, all right. Deconverted man here. Maps of meaning. Jordan Peterson. Oh, okay. So I listened to 13 minutes of this video. 13 minutes 11 seconds of this video, and I'm not gonna play the video. I'm just gonna talk about what he said in those 13 minutes in brief as I can. I'm gonna play the video, then I'd stop it and comment, blah blah blah. Be here for an hour doing that. He starts off this lecture with a false dichotomy. We've decided, he asserts, that there's two ways to see the world. It's either a materialistic way or based on, like looking at what your actions do, what you're worrying about how you navigate the world. Wait a minute. That's not true. That you can do both. Why can't you do both? There's no reason you can't accept the world for how it really is. Yes, it is materialistic. Yes, it is mechanistic. It might even be deterministic for all I know. The idea that these are the only two ways when there's other ways, I suppose. You can think about he says, you can think about the perspective experience as materialist, and make what the world's made up of. Or you can think about how to act in the world. Well, I don't see why you can't do both. Because yes, the material substrate, that's what things are. Things are things. Things are made out of stuff that we call material. Atoms and molecules and all that, and it's energy at its core. And okay, cool. That's how reality be. Now, how do I act? Well, I act as if that's true because it is true. And how I act, well, maybe I'm predisposed to act how I act and I don't really have a choice and I just think I have a choice. Maybe I have free will, maybe I don't. Maybe I have partial free will or limited free will. I don't know. I leave that up to the neurologists and physicists and cosmologists and whoever the bleep to figure it out, because that's not me. I don't know. I have no idea. But it is completely a false dichotomy that this is incompatible with each other, and or that these are the only two ways to look at the world, because that's not true, and or anything. No, there's many other ways to look at the world. You say, oh, it's all created by God. So at the core, it's all spirit stuff. So even if you go with the God thing, and he doesn't mention God per se, but he does talk about atheists, or atheism. He talks about the atheism worldview. Yes, he mentions atheism in that way. That if you say there's a God and that there is a spiritual realm, which the two are not necessarily conjoined, they could be separate, but whatever, okay. There's a spiritual realm. Then at the core, we're all souls. That's what we really are. We're soul stuff. Okay, well, yeah, you could look at it that way, or you could look about how to act in the spiritual realm. Well, wait a minute. Just because you recognize that you're a spirit deep down, that doesn't mean you can't also think about how you're going to act in this realm that you think is a thing. What are people going to do in heaven or hell or whatever afterlife, purgatory, whatever? Well, there's stories about what they do. We're told some of that in some holy texts, and it seems kind of boring. Worship and sing and bask in the glory of God. Man, that sounds dull and boring. And you get to do it with other people that all believe what you believe. Yay! Oh my. And there's a city built of gold because, I don't know, reasons. And we get physical bodies, but then we don't. I don't know. It's all silly and whatever. But okay, so our essence, what we are, whether you abstract that down to the soul or molecules, one you can be sure about, which is molecules. The other one, there's no evidence of, but you could say it's all soul. Then you say, well, it's either we could look at the spiritual realm that we're all just made of soul, or we can figure out how to act in the spiritual realm. We can't do both, though. It's ridiculous, right? Okay, so false dichotomy. Not a good way to start. Then he talks about perception and, it's all, we see stuff and you're not a passive observer, you're active. I don't know, whatever. It's like, okay, but I mean, people that are blind interact with the world. So it seems rather narrow that we're going to focus on the visual system. What about people that are blind? Leaving them out, but whatever. Anyways. And he talks about, of course he goes off kind of on a tangent. If you're in a restaurant, you're paying attention to what's going around you, whatever. Okay, yeah. You do this at the movies. You're watching the movie and you notice the exit signs. They're kind of annoying, but then eventually your vision focuses on just the movie. But it takes a bit. It takes a moment. He says a lot without saying much of anything. That's the other thing I noticed. He says a lot of things, sprinkling in what seems like scientific statements without anything. And then he talks about these cybernetic theorists. And he goes on this long analogy of how they figured out missile control systems. And then he uses that analogy in reference to humans and how we perceive things. And it's like, what? Okay. Those are, I mean, you have okay, so I guess, you have a particular goal you're aiming at, and then you shoot and you hit that goal, right? I mean, I guess, but it just seems so, you didn't need to do that, I don't think. Talks about emotion, talks about how going back, mixing the emotion and the missile, what does he say? I have to read through the script or the transcript. The anti-missile is unhappy as it deviates from the course. Okay. Anyways. He talks about some other stuff. I'm trying to get to where he talks about, I'm looking through the transcript. He makes statements about eyes and vision that aren't exactly true, apparently. That you becomes monochrome at a certain point or whatever, and that's like kind of is true but not fully true. So I don't know, it's just kind of a statement he makes it that's not really correct. So I don't know why you would do that, but whatever. The whole point is about getting to the goal, right? But instead of talking, just say that, we gotta talk, we gotta make it complicated. Talk about robotics and missiles, and you got to bring up postmodernists. I don't care about postmodernists. Whatever. That stuff's just nonsense to me because it doesn't have logic in it. So whatever, they believe nonsense. Good, whatever. Good luck with that, guys. You're not gonna get anywhere. But his complaints about them seem to be kind of a straw man, so that's not good. And then he talks about he mentions scientific story. What's that? What's that serve? Serves us. What was it about the atheist now? Okay, so he talks about Heiser and Hanger or whatever philosophers I don't give a shit about. And then he was Hustler was unhappy with the materialist, reductionist, atheist view of reality. Atheist view of reality. Oh, yeah. Please enlighten me. What is exactly the atheist view of reality? I mean, okay, even not believing in God, even if you went with the hard atheism, saying there's no God, that doesn't tell you anything more about reality. It doesn't tell you anything else. There is no atheist view. It's not enough. The word doesn't give you that. You need to add more things. Maybe you mean materialist or naturalist, but even then you don't really have a full view, perhaps. Everything being natural, everything being material, doesn't tell you what you think about morals, ethics, or anything else. It doesn't tell you that. So it's not enough. So there isn't a view of reality. And him being unhappy about it, well, who the fuck cares? You're unhappy about it. Oh, poor baby. So he complains about it. And I don't know, people pay attention because whatever. So the main core, if you will, of that 13 minutes is the goal is to tell people that there's a goal and you need to get to the goal. Cool. I like that. Great. I don't know that I need all that fluff to get there. I certainly don't need a false dichotomy. I certainly don't need illogic, and I certainly don't need you to tell me that what the atheist view of reality is, since there isn't one. And you're leaving me out of the conversation. You're leaving blind people out of the conversation, seems like. These mixed metaphors and appeals to metaphors and just fancy words that really mean nothing. And that's it. That's I don't think it gets better after that. So there's nothing here. I still liked the Pinocchio analysis. I still found value in that. This I don't find value in. Thanks for listening. Be a skeptic. Or if you're not a skeptic, well, become a skeptic because, there's lobsters, I guess. Yeah.